Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate. NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Perryn Keys here, hanging out with the two veterans, the two soon-to-be Hall of Famers, Scott Rabalais, our venerable longtime columnist, and a man who's already in the Hall of Fame, Sheldon Mickles.
Even more venerable.
That's right. He's more venerable, more experienced. I would say he's seen it all, but I guess then Sunday afternoon erupted, and well, we'll get into that. What are we going to talk about today, gentlemen? Do you have any good ideas for some topics?
Nothing much happened this weekend. Nothing at all.
Emma Stone seems so surprised when she won Best Actress for Poor Things.
There are a lot of surprises this weekend, so we will. Rumor has it that there was a little a skirmish in Greenvilla, South Carolina. It was the Thrilla in Greenvilla. We will get into it here. The LSU women's basketball team obviously goes to the championship game of the SEC tournament. A hard-fought game against South Carolina, and then it erupts into something else in the fourth quarter, and we will get into all of that. We will also discuss, obviously, some LSU men's basketball as well as their regular season wraps up. So we are here to get into it all. Gentlemen, how you guys doing? Fun weekend?
Doing good.
Interesting weekend, Rab?
Oh, never a dull moment. Never a dull moment in Tiger Town.
We were not that anybody cares that much, but I was listening, as I said, to Patrick Wright call the LSU women's game in the first half when they were playing South Carolina on Sunday, and I tuned in, as it turned out, just in time to find out to see just exactly what the highlight was going to be of pretty much everybody's weekend. So we will get into all of that. There's plenty to get into. First, a little bit of business. If you're tuning in, you already know that The Advocate's the #1 destination, always has been, for LSU sports coverage. Please, if you haven't already, please subscribe to The Advocate. Go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. And there's clearly plenty going on these days. There was a little bit of breaking news this morning, as a matter of fact, with Flau'jae Johnson's brother. So we sent that out via our LSU newsletter. That's the best way to stay up to date with everything. You get everything sent to your inbox, to your phone, to your desktop. You stay up to date with all the sports, all the breaking news. So sign up for our LSU newsletter. To do that, you go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here every Monday and Thursday on the LSU Sports Insider. We're here on all our social channels, specifically the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. You can catch us there live every Monday and Thursday. If you don't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact on that same YouTube channel. So please subscribe to that one. Again, it's the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. And, of course, we are brought to you every day, every Monday and Thursday, by Champion Wealth Strategies. Champion Wealth Strategies is a national financial services firm specializing in the capital markets, securities, insurance, 401ks, and college and retirement planning. Our broker-dealer is LPL, financial member FINRA, SIPC. As you know, investments are not FDIC insured, may lose value, and have no bank guarantee. Contact Champion Wealth Strategies and plan like a champion today. So first things first, Rab, if you don't mind, I was going to get into it with you a little bit about just generally speaking, it was quite an intriguing SEC women's tournament to begin with. LSU goes in without Mikaylah Williams, having dealt with some plantar fasciitis. They held her out for the first two games. They wind up losing last year Poa in the semifinals. She takes a hard hit to the head going down onto the floor. And then Mikaylah comes back for the championship game. This is a team that was not very deep to begin with, and now you're living on the edge a little bit in terms of depth. The talent's there, 1 through 7 really, but it's a question of depth. Janae Kent, you saw come in and start actually on Sunday, and they will obviously try to get as much out of her as they can. But LSU showed a lot of the fourth quarter fight notwithstanding. LSU showed a lot of toughness and a lot of fortitude, I thought, going through that tournament, because frankly we didn't know how Kim Mulkey was going to try to play it. Whether she was going to just hey, we'll see what happens and then we'll worry about the NCAA tournament and go from there. But they fight notwithstanding, which we'll get to, they showed what I thought was some toughness and quite a bit of mettle going through that tournament.
Well, they did. As you said, Mikaylah Williams, they tried to hold her out. They did hold her out until they got to the final. But you're playing Auburn, first of all, who's given you two really tough games,
yes.
A 5-point loss and a 5-point win. And then Angel Reese turns her ankle, and she's limping around, the whole rest of the tournament. I think she was even in a walking boot walking into the arena on Sunday. and she played through all of that. And as I said, the depth. Kent has been. She's a freshman, a highly regarded freshman, but she's been very inconsistent. So she's make some great plays. She'll make a turnover. She up and down. She just hasn't played a lot. But they were kind of forced to play her. And then finally, Mikaylah comes back after last year. Poa suffers the concussion. Went down really hard trying to take a charge against Ole Miss on Saturday night in the semifinals. And but they persevered through all that. And I obviously. They lost to South Carolina in Baton Rouge by 6. They lost here by 7, but it's they did about as best they could. I think given all, if you take everything in totality, they did about best they could to get to the final. And but they lost again to South Carolina. That's the bottom line. But at the same time, 28-5. I think they solidified. Charlie Cream with ESPN, who analyzes the bracket, was very confident that LSU solidified what it needed to do to get a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, which is better than they had last year.
Yes,
they were a 3 seed last year. So if that comes to pass, you would think it would. They have a net of 8 after yesterday. And all those things are pointing in the right direction for LSU. And now they have 2 weeks or almost 2 weeks to get healthy and try to get back everyone that they have left back for the NCAA tournament.
Yes, as you mentioned. Actually, I wanted to go back. You brought up 28-5 with a 2 seed. In a lot of ways, I want to go all the way back just for a moment to really preseason. Pre-November, we sat here in the studio and discussed. It's a distinct possibility that this team has more talent, but will wind up with a slightly worse record. Well, last year's team finished, I can't remember what the number was,
34-2.
34-2. 2 losses. And so that has, at least to this point, kind of borne itself out, right? A more talented, what seems to be a more talented team, at least, the starting 5, 6, 7. And, well, Colorado wanted a piece of them and got them and showed them. South Carolina obviously came in and won a tough fight. Auburn tripped them up, and what's the other? Who else am I forgetting? Who else did they lose?
Miss State.
Mississippi State. That's right. Going
they
up to
lost back-to-back to South Carolina, Miss State. Then they won 10 in a row.
That's right.
Before yesterday's game.
Yeah. So they, in totality, the loss of Kateri Poole notwithstanding, they're about where we thought they might be going into the postseason. And going back to South Carolina, I found it telling, and I frankly think it's believable. What Angel Reese said post-game, hey, we're not scared of South Carolina. And I think that was the attitude they took in both of those games, don't you think? I mean, it was certainly physical, both of those games, and about as intense as a game as I can remember in recent memory.
Yeah, they've got 3 potential All-Americans in the starting lineup with Angel Reese and Anissa Morrow and Haley Van Lith, and Flau'jae Johnson's an all-conference level player, and then they have last year Poa or whoever. Mikaylah Williams is going to be freshman of the year, freshman All-American. So it's a very talented lineup, and on paper it's a more talented lineup than they had last year. It took them time to kind of find the defense that they wanted, that Kim Mulkey always wants to play, and that was lacking early in the season. But this is kind of, it hasn't been what you could have predicted, losing Samaya Smith to a knee injury and Kateri Poole being off the team, and then what happened this weekend in Greenville. But it's still about what we thought going into the year. They could be a better team with a better record. And you look at Vegas, I didn't look at any odds today, but over the weekend they were the 3rd favorite to win the NCAA tournament behind South Carolina and Iowa. And I think what we've seen is, though South Carolina's undefeated and clearly the favorite and clearly the overall number 1, they're not invincible. They blew a 23-point lead to Tennessee.
That's right.
Who's a good team, but they got 12 losses now. They're not a great Tennessee team, and they should have lost the game. Tennessee missed 2 free throws. If Tennessee had taken care of their business, all this ugliness could have been avoided.
And they left Cardozo wide. I understand it was her first 3-pointer and everything like that, but I mean, my goodness.
Everyone's a shooter with 1 second left. Everyone.
And when it's a wide open shot, I mean, of course she's going to shoot it. You have to play a little tighter than that. You got to be a little more honest than they were.
Absolutely. Everybody's just standing there watching the ball go off the backboard. Cool. But it's there's a lot of teams that could win it and wind up in Cleveland at the Final Four, and it's exciting for the women's game overall. And LSU is right in that mix. I guess this is what I'm coming, the long way around coming to. LSU is still right in that mix. Is it hard to repeat? Yeah, but they're not the team that you want to see in your bracket, or you don't want to say, oh, great, they're sending us to Baton Rouge for the first 2 rounds. That's
right.
Great.
So let's discuss the Thrilla in Greenvilla. Sheldon, you're great at this stuff, and you timed out the delay and everything like that. How much time was left on the clock when they?
It's 2 minutes and 8 seconds.
Okay.
2:08.
2:08. Ashlyn Watkins comes down as sort of in a celebratory mood. She did, frankly, looking back on it, what I thought was a pretty shrewd, in a heat of battle type of moment where she's taunting Flau'jae, but you couldn't, by the letter of the law, you couldn't tee her up for anything like that. She's just sort of jaw jacking on her way back. Got in Flau'jae's personal space. Flau'jae took exception to it. Yes,
from South Carolina.
Flau'jae took exception to it, gave her a little forearm shiver. Ashlyn Watkins, again, smart of her, she sort of backed off. She was still in a celebratory mood, but she backed off knowing that she would have been the retaliator and would have been penalized for it. And then Mikaylah Cardozo says, watch this, and knocks Flau'jae down to the ground, and then it's on. It results in a 20-minute gap. Sheldon, you timed that out. Thank you for that.
Thanks to my DVR.
That's right. Well, that's right. Hey, look, Sheldon's the taskmaster. He's always great at these sort of little details.
Well, I learned a long time ago that when you're going to have a delay, you want to put it in your story.
That's right.
And you don't want to say, it was 12 minutes when it was 20.
No, that's right.
I always try to be precise.
That's good. So 20 minutes while officials sort everything out. And for that matter, while police and the authorities have to escort out Flau'jae Johnson's brother for jumping the scoring table to go defend his sister. It was a wild scene. Angel Reese, as we break down the game film, we see Angel Reese saying, "No, I don't want any part of this." Which I know she's going to probably take some criticism for, oh well, wait a minute, she didn't come in and defend her teammate. But I think it was probably again a shrewd move. You all know, you two gentlemen have been watching basketball for a long time. The number one rule in all these things that, man, if you leave the bench or if you get into it, you're going to get penalized. You're going to get penalized. It was a shrewd move by her to maybe stay out of the mess because she knows she's a controversial figure, and all of a sudden she's maybe going to take a brunt of the blame for that, if she defends her teammate a little bit too vigorously. Long story short, they clear the bench. Everybody on the bench who left gets suspended, gets sent back to the locker room. As we later learned, Mikaylah Cardozo gets ejected. ESPN had it wrong at first and cleaned it up later and said, no, she will be the only one who will be DQ'd for the first half of the NCAA tournament game coming up. And so, we've got a mess on our hands. Rab, you had a column that's up at theadvocate.com today that was actually posted Sunday night saying that there's a fair amount of blame to go around. I just suppose, if we could just sort of reset that for us.
The whole game was very physical, and there's and a lot of pushing and shoving and literally hair pulling.
Yes.
Angel Reese got caught pulling Cardozo's hair maybe a couple of times. I know at least once. I don't know if it was 2 different angles or 2 different incidents. And then the jawing and the back and forth, and then the officiating didn't help. The physicality built. There was only 1 foul on each team called to that point in the fourth quarter. So 8 minutes of game action. So you say, well, they're letting them play, but it's I think that contributed to the tension, the tempers boiling over. There was a play or Angel, just as one example, and I would say there's stuff on both sides, but Angel's driving to the basket, and the South Carolina player clamps her down on both arms, and this LSU's got the ball out of bounds instead of her getting 2 free throws. Now they did get the basket, but nonetheless, it should be a foul. Fouls mount up on players, and that should count. And it's like she deals with a lot of that. She dishes out some of that too. There's jawing and complaining on both sides, but the officials, didn't.
They ate their whistles.
Yeah, and it was too much. And Kim Mulkey suggested that was the case. And neither team handled it well. As Dawn Staley said, neither team handled a very emotional, highly charged game very well. But there's a lot of, as I said, a lot of blame to go around. LSU's players could have handled it better. Cardozo certainly very much in the wrong for just, very forcefully shoving down, she wasn't even in the
Knocked her over.
action, and she just shoved her down. And,
Understand the notion that you want to come to the defense of your teammate, but
then people jumping out of the stands, family members or not, as Sheldon, our track expert, said, it was an impressive table leap by the brother and the police officer.
Dennis Shaver might be checking the film today to see,
see if he's got a hurdler.
I think it was great hurdling technique, to tell you the truth. But no, he was talking, physicality, and I was more impressed actually with the police officer who jumped over the scorer's table. I mean, he's got probably 50 pounds of equipment in his belt, hanging on him and everything else, and he came over that table like it was like he was hopping over a little fence. But, Rab was talking about the physicality of it. And, for years, a championship game, even though it's a SEC championship game, NCAA championship game, they let them play.
Yes.
And you're going to see that when we get to the end of the NCAA tournament. Most of the times, they'll let them play. And, maybe it got out of hand a little bit yesterday, and you got chippiness all over the place. And I think it all balled over in one little second there.
We know these two teams. I'm not going to go so far. Well, I will go so far as to say that certainly the fan bases don't like each other. The coaches are certainly two very different personalities, and we saw from the previous last season's previous two meetings, and then the meeting this season, which was just a dynamite atmosphere, a great game in the PMAC, but it was very, very intense. And so, you've got intense players, competitive players, very competitive coaches, very combative coaches at times, and they're going at it. And so, I think I'm sort of with you, Rab. Certainly, there's plenty of blame to go around, but also, the officials. It's one thing to let them play, and in many cases, you want to say, well, I know there's a lot of LSU fans out there today, so hey, Angel got hacked and. The refs had it out for him, and I don't buy that.
I don't either.
In part because, listen, if the officials, going back to the depth issue, South Carolina's a whole lot. If we're just talking about basketball, South Carolina's a whole lot deeper team, and so if officials are calling it tight, well, you saw what happened in the PMAC. Angel fouls out. Now all of a sudden you're in a spot if you're LSU because you're not as deep as South Carolina, and they sort of overtook them. So in a lot of ways, letting them play could have benefited LSU if it had been a little bit cleaner game, not quite as physical.
Possibly, but how it contributed to the incident was South Carolina gets the ball, the player's heading up court, Flaugier makes a hard clearly intentional foul.
Because they know it's going to be a breakaway layup.
And the South Carolina player, she had enough,
right?
And she reacted. She got hot about that, and then the shoving, and it was a couple of South Carolina players getting away. Then Cardozo comes out of nowhere to get in her face, and it all just built up, and it was just a shame. It marred a thrilling tournament and a pretty exciting championship game between LSU and South Carolina, the two top teams in the tournament, the two-time teams in the SEC. People want to see, and I will say this, as I said in my column, I don't think anyone would object to seeing them play again in the Final Four, the national championship game. I don't. Obviously, the NCAA can't put them. They're too highly seeded. They can't put them in the same regional, so they would not meet until they played in Cleveland. But it would be interesting.
One last thing on the physicality. What I was talking about in a championship game, we couldn't see it on TV, of course, but you kind of wonder if the officials went to each bench and said, "Hey, Kate, let's cut it out. Let's clean it up a little bit." I don't know if that happened at all because you can't tell during commercials and timeouts and everything. But if they're really good officials, and you think they are because they got that assignment, you would think that they might have tried to clean that up earlier. If they did, fine. But if they didn't, I think that maybe they should have taken that into consideration.
You two gentlemen have been covering basketball for 20, 30, 40 years, and you have seen that many times, right? Where officials will get, in much the same way that baseball umpires will, get the two managers together, whatever, say, okay, guys, look, I know it's getting chippy. Watch it, hey, knock it off, and you're correct, Sheldon. If they didn't, then that's on the officials too. Greg Sankey put out a statement Monday morning in so many words, and I don't have it in front of me, but in so many words saying, this was a great game, a competitive game, a showcase for women's basketball, and it's a shame that it came to this. And He didn't say they're looking into it, but obviously the league is going to be looking into it, and they will assess whatever they also assess. And in a bit of seriousness, Flau'jae's brother, it was reported at the very, very outset that South Carolina, Greenville police arrested Flau'jae's brother. And then per an LSU spokesperson, no, he was just escorted out of the building. Our Reed Darcy on Monday morning reports that Flau'jae's brother was indeed arrested, booked into the Greenville County Jail Sunday evening after jumping onto the court during an altercation, I'm reading here. Trayron Lenoris Milton, Johnson's older brother, was charged with a count of disorderly conduct and assault and battery in the third degree. So we will see what comes of that. So it's again, it's a mess, and it's a shame that all this stuff happened because, just as you say, it was. I mean, I don't want to speak for you two guys, but this was sort of appointment viewing. I think that much of the nation will check the TV ratings here in a bit, but much of the nation was tuning in just as they tuned in, in what was it, late January in the PMAC, right? I mean, this is appointment viewing, in much the same way that Caitlin Clark's appointment viewing.
Yeah, it's we've seen a lot of personality-driven and performance-driven ratings for women's basketball have really jumped up there in attendance and that sort of thing. The game was sold out yesterday in South Carolina, but there were some LSU fans there. There was a great crowd for the Tennessee-South Carolina game on Saturday, the semifinal. The Big Ten women's tournament was sold out. Why? A lot of reasons. Caitlin Clark. Women's basketball has enjoyed a renaissance in the last couple of years, and this is part of it. And it's one thing to say no publicity is bad publicity. It's another thing to say this shouldn't happen, and we find this all very distasteful. But it's people are going to be watching the NCAA tournament. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, it's always interesting to see what the selection committee does on Sunday. If they spread if they're smart, they'll spread the teams out and try to set it up where South Carolina, Iowa, LSU, and maybe UConn and Gino Auriemma's last season potentially have a path to make it to the Final Four.
Let's. If you were on the selection committee, Rab, how would you do it? And with an eye toward, hey, let's get the maximum number of ears and eyeballs on these matchups in the Final Four in Cleveland.
Yeah, I'd want those teams in 4 different regionals, and you got to throw in USC and Juju Watkins, the other USC, Southern Cal, and Juju Watkins, who's going to be the National Freshman of the Year. She's been tremendous. You got to throw them in the mix as well. They're going to be a 1 or 2 seed somewhere. So. It's but I don't have any faith in the selection committee to do that. I think they'll be like, why'd they put this? We're going to be the usual thing. Why'd they put these teams here? Why'd they set up? They're going to meet in the Sweet 16, and they could meet in the Final Four. I don't know.
I could see them. I don't think it would be out of bounds.
For example, LSU and Iowa. Iowa's going to be a number 1 after winning the Big Ten tournament with Caitlin Clark. They're projected to be a number 1 seed. You could see LSU as the 2 in their regional, or would it better to see Charlie Cream from ESPN again as LSU as the number 2 in a regional with Stanford as the number 1? And nothing against Stanford, they don't quite have that.
Doesn't have the star power.
Yeah, they got Cameron Brink. I mean, she's a great player, but she's not Clark or Reese or something like that. So, are they going to take that into account? They'll probably try to be like. Not take that into account, like overly, I don't know. But you wouldn't want to see LSU and Iowa meet in the regional final. You'd rather see them meet in the Final Four.
My only counter argument, I mean, yes, I agree with you, but my only counter argument to that is that perhaps maybe the selection committee or the NCAA or the networks or whoever gets together and decides these things says, well, people are going to tune into the Final Four anyway because there's going to be a relative, we quote unquote assume that either LSU or Caitlin Clark or whoever else, Cardozo, South Carolina, Dawn Staley will be there. So we can pit we can pit 2 of these sort of superstar teams in a regional final because we can sort of double dip. We can get a great rating on that game, and we will also continue to get the great ratings for the semifinals and finals. Who knows? One more thing as it relates to the Thrilla in Greenvilla before we move on. I just wanted to. I will be the first to go out there and say. So maybe I'm taking some heat off of you two guys. I thought, to Dawn Staley's credit, I thought she sort of answered things post game in a way that I would want my coach to answer things post game. Like, look, as you said, I don't want to take it too far, but certainly everybody's at fault here. Nobody is clean, so to speak, and certainly her players were playing very, very physical, every bit as much as LSU, if not more so. But to me, for my money, she sort of said more of the right things, frankly, than Kim Mulkey did in post game. And I was curious to see if you had any thoughts about that.
Well, my initial thought was, well, she won the game, so she can say it a little bit easier than Kim Mulkey did, because Kim obviously frustrated at the end of the game in her post game comments. Probably, like I said, Dawn Staley won the game, so naturally she's going to be happier. And although she did sound very contrite about what happened, and I think that's a credit to her, and nothing against Kim, and like I said, I think she's at the end, she's disappointed, frustrated, players hurt all over the place, and it was a very physical game that got out of control. And I think she spoke her mind about it, which she is
she's certainly never shy in doing.
Right. Yeah. She has every right to if she wants to say it.
Kim's basically said Cardozo should have picked on someone her own size.
Yes.
Meaning like Angel Reese, who Cardozo's 6'7" and Angel's 6'3". But that's not the right thing to say either. That's kind of like you're saying, if you're gonna have you're gonna have a fight. So make it between the right people. Have the right matchup. Don't make it a bantamweight heavyweight fight. Make it two heavyweights, or and that's not the right thing to say. But Kim Mulkey will speak her mind. People will bash her for just about anything she says.
And she'll sleep just fine tonight.
She will. I can promise you, having gotten to know Coach Mulkey over the 3 years she's here, she doesn't really seem to care what people think about her, and she's dealt with this really her whole life. I mean, going back to, if I may, when she was a youth baseball player, she was part of this huge controversy that they didn't want her to play in the tournament with the rest of the boys, and they were gonna keep her team from playing. Mm-hmm. This was a story we had in the paper before anyone knew Kim Mulkey is going to be this great basketball player. She's like 13, 14 years old,
right? And
she told her dad to tell them, I don't want my teammates not to get to play. I won't play. And she was devastated. But this was at least locally, it was a big thing. Mm-hmm. And so she is no stranger to controversy. Put it that way. And I will say this too. But what Mulkey and Reese, they're such polarizing figures.
Yes.
Like the whole thing about Angel not going, if she'd gone out and started shoving with Cardozo, people would say she shouldn't do that. As she goes sits on the end of the bench and
people are making fun of her.
Yeah, saying she's not fighting. Well,
what do you want to do?
Which is it?
Yeah. She did the right thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And just to put I'm sorry, Rab, but just to put a little finer point on there. Well, hey, Angel's not defending her teammate. It's all over social media. You can find it if you want to. At some point, during that whole impasse, there is footage of Angel very clearly going up to Flau'jae. We don't know what she said exactly, but sort of doing the, finger on the shoulder, saying, "Hey," and so many words. We're obviously speculating, but I think it's fair to say that she's probably saying something to the effect of, "Hey, we can't lose you. We need you to keep your head screwed on. We can't afford you to lose your for you to lose your cool." And then you see Angel pointing at a ring finger. And what I took from that, again, is just my assessment. What I took from that was Angel basically saying, "Hey, we need you. Our mission is bigger. We can't afford to have you suspended." Things of that nature. Basically, being a good leader and a good veteran, saying, "Hey, keep your wits about you if and when you can."
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that Cardozo got ejected and is likely to serve a suspension in their first game of the NCAA tournament. Flau'jae could have retaliated and gotten that as well. And
if they wanted to be heavy-handed about it, they could have popped her.
And some people were saying Haley Van Lith kind of ran in there and shoved Cardozo.
She did
on the side too. That was a little hard for me to see, but it looks like she did. And surprisingly, maybe surprisingly, she didn't get anything. By the way, the ejections were so many Belgian players left the bench. Even Izzy Besselman got ejected. LSU was left with the 5 starters, and South Carolina had 5 starters plus 1 player. Not 5 starters. Cardozo was out. 5 players on the court plus they had 1 player on the bench, and they couldn't even come out for the post game celebration.
That's right.
It was just the 6 unejected players who were there to receive the trophy. It was bizarre. No one's going to forget it, though.
No.
And they're going to be watching next year.
Well,
see these teams
Perryn
playing
said,
tournament too.
I don't know if something happened overnight. Perryn said she's going to miss the first half. Cardozo's going to miss the first half of the first tournament game. They were saying last night the whole first game. And
I may have misspoke then.
yeah, I think I
The
believe
last I
it's
saw
the
was
first.
the NCAA was going to review the whole
Okay.
thing and then make an announcement
Okay.
maybe today.
Well,
At least a half, right?
Yeah,
At least half.
it's got to be at least a half. Now that's the football rule, but I don't know. Our football may be even different. But
That was the last I saw. And listen, I may have
as
misspoken.
As one of our colleagues pointed out last night in a text message that it's not going to matter. They play in Antarctica State, or I saw that somewhere.
No, that's right.
But
yes.
I mean, the 16 seed could beat the number 1 seed in these days. I mean, you never know.
Harvard beat Stanford in 1998 when Stanford's best player, Kristen Focal, had a knee injury and she didn't play. It's not beyond the realm of possibility.
Listen,
It's happened before.
I do not wager on sports. I don't look down on those who do. But if I were a wagering person, I would put quite a bit of money on South Carolina escaping a 1 versus 16.
What conference is Antarctica State in anyway?
I believe it's the Big Sky, but I could be wrong. Maybe the big
big
Antarctic,
cold.
yeah, the polar conference. Let's get this back on the rails. This is the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. You know where to find all our writers' great work. That's at theadvocate.com. If you haven't subscribed already, if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, whether that's print or digital. Go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. Clearly, there's plenty going on. We haven't even discussed baseball or, for that matter, gymnastics. They're going to be in the hunt for a national championship. Softball remains undefeated at 22-0 with a sweep of Kentucky. Stay up to date with everything. The easiest way to do that, obviously, is with our LSU newsletter. You get it straight to your inbox. To sign up for that LSU newsletter, you go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here on the LSU Sports Insider every Monday and Thursday. We're here on all our social channels live every Monday and Thursday. If you don't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact on our YouTube channel. That's the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. So please subscribe to that as well, so you can stay up to date, catch us live, and call up our beautiful faces anytime you like, and review the older shows as well. So please do that. And of course, we are brought to you every Monday and Thursday by Champion Wealth Strategies. Please go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. We're going to turn, as we obviously, Sheldon, you're here. You've been following the men all season long. They wrap up their regular season. We sat here on this podcast last week and surmised that, yes, LSU's got a better record than Arkansas, but that going up to Fayetteville was not going to be an easy task. They do indeed lose in Fayetteville last week, and then, of course, they finish up it was perhaps more difficult than we expected against an 0-17 team in a conference against Missouri. They squeak it out. They win 84-80. Going into the last even several seconds, Missouri was trying to make it interesting. But they finished the year 17-14, 9-9 in the SEC. They will head to the SEC tournament. I don't know. Just tell us what you're thinking about all. Just as sort of generally speaking about the men's team the past couple of weeks.
Well, first of all, going back to Arkansas, we talked about it. It was going to be a tough game to play in Bud Walton Arena. It was going to be senior night, and I think we're seeing Arkansas here kind of, if you will, grow up at the end of the year. Yeah. Scored over 100 points against Kentucky in Rupp Arena. A week and a half later, they go to Alabama and do not trail the whole game, 40 minutes. Alabama didn't take its first lead until overtime, and kind of played really tough against Alabama. So based on an 11-point win over LSU, a game at Rupp Arena that they maybe could have won, a game against Alabama on the road in a tough place to play. So Arkansas is not, they might be able to win a game or two here in the SEC tournament. They play Vanderbilt, I believe it is, on Wednesday night, and I haven't checked to see who else they go beyond that. But they're playing very well right now, especially offensively. So now to your original question about LSU. Absolutely. A team that won 2 games a year ago, won 9 this year in the conference. It's the second, best winning total improvement, if you will, over last year. South Carolina went from 4 wins to 12.
Right.
So they had an 8-game improvement. LSU had a 7-game improvement. Picked to finish 13th in the league. South Carolina's picked to finish 14th. So, obviously, and Matt McMahon always talks about steps.
Right.
This was a big step this year for them. He's already looking. No, he's not already looking forward to next year, but there's a lot more positive thinking going into next year before this year is even complete. Now, that being said, they're going into the SEC tournament. They don't have to play the first night as they did last year. They go into the second round, but they have to play a Mississippi State team that, beat them by 20 here in Baton Rouge a couple of weeks ago. So a little bit of tough draw there, but 8-9 is always going to be a tough draw. They had a chance to get to 7, but then A&M won its last 3 games, excuse me, and was able to secure the 7 seed. So LSU's in the 8-9 slot. They play Mississippi State, who's number 9. The winner gets Tennessee, number 1 Tennessee on Friday in the quarter. So, all in all, 17-14, there's a lot of people who say, well, we didn't bring Matt McMahon here to go 9-9 and finish, in a tie for 7th in the conference and be the 8th seed in the tournament. He said that after the game. Right. And, it's true. He wants to win more than anybody else, but he knows it's a process. The transfer portal has made it a little bit easier than it has been in the past, but you still have to find the right players, which I think he found better transfer players this year, obviously, and it worked out a lot better in one of the toughest conferences in the league.
Yes, as you said, he mentioned yesterday that he's not here to celebrate. He didn't come to LSU to celebrate a 9-9 record. But it is, again, I know we discussed this in previous podcasts. Rab, I'll actually throw it to you on this, which is, when Matt McMahon took over, I know we've said this before, but it is easy to forget. When Matt McMahon took over, or when he was about to take over, there were literally 0 players, 0 coaches. The program was at 0, and he quite literally had to build something from scratch. With that in mind, 17-14, 9-9 in the SEC. I will tell you, after they lost to Nichols in pre-conference, if anybody had said that they finished 9-9 in conference, I'd have said, I don't think so, gentlemen. I'm not so sure what you're looking at.
No, I thought 5 or 6 SEC wins.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, and that's the question I would put to you: is this? And I understand they've got potentially an NIT to go, depending on how that goes. And obviously here, the SEC tournament front and center. But generally speaking, has this season been a success? Would you view it as a success for the LSU men?
I would. Again, you have to take the bigger picture. And I think I'm right in saying that, Sheldon, when they got down to nobody on the roster, they were still waiting for the NCAA, for the resolution of this whole NCAA situation.
Oh, absolutely. That didn't come till last June.
Right. So
the whole resolution.
Right. So I figured that, but I was just trying to make sure. So you're trying to bring in players with that hanging over the program. Right. So let's keep that in mind. Well, Kim Mulkey did so much better in her first 2 years, and Jay Johnson, not the same situations at all. Right. And not to knock what they did, it was tremendous achievements, but not the same situations at all to deal with that. So, it's been kind of baby steps at times, and sometimes it's been, 2 steps forward and one step back. And the game I thought the other night was kind of a microcosm of the season, the Missouri game. They played great. They looked great at flashes, and they leaked a lot of oil down the stretch. Yes. And they just hung on to beat a winless SEC team, but they did win. And these are games that they probably would not have won last year. I think you're seeing progress in the program. They with the players coming back and the players who they are bringing in or could bring in next year, more improvement I think is reasonable to expect. So. If they can get in the NIT, or even if they don't, if they lose the first round of Mississippi State, and that turns out to be it, I think it's still been a positive season, and I would give them and Matt a lot of credit for getting this far. I didn't think, going back to November, it's like, this is going to be a long year.
Yep.
And they won 2 games last year. I think they'll win. 4, 5, 6.
I was thinking 7-11. They top out at 7-11.
Yeah,
maybe
and 9-9, and finishing tied for a spot in the top half of the league is worth maybe not worth celebrating, but it's worth saying this is improvement and the program is heading in a good direction.
Perryn, you mentioned you thought they might win 5. I pegged them. I wanted to look this morning to find out what I voted them in the SEC poll, preseason media poll. I didn't look it up, but it wasn't 13th. It might have been 11th or so.
Yeah.
I thought I told colleagues this that they would win probably 4 or 5 in the SEC, probably 5. And then they won the first 2 games out of the blocks in the SEC.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I think this team could win 8, maybe 9 if things fall their way. And, it turned out that way. You could say, okay, well, they shouldn't have beat Kentucky, but they should have beat Georgia over there.
Right.
So there's been, kind of give and take.
Could have beaten Florida on the road.
It kind of bounced out. It kind of bounced out. You don't know what would have happened at Florida because if Jordan Wright makes that shot, they go to overtime, and then they may have lost by 10 in overtime. So, things balanced out. They probably won a game or 2 they shouldn't have, and they probably lost a game or 2 they shouldn't have. But after that Nicholls State game, I'm with you. It was looked pretty bleak. I know Matt McMahon probably wouldn't want me to be saying that, but things were pretty bleak. And I mean, those guys stayed the course, and they went through the Jalen Cook situation, fighting to get him on the court. Then he gets on the court, and then something happened, and we know there was an injury involved, but that was about it. But, it was an unfortunate incident, and they seem to have kind of maybe been galvanized here in the last, 10, 12 games.
Yeah.
And playing very well right now.
We've hit this topic once or twice before, but if you can just reset this for us, Sheldon, again. Right now, LSU has the 10th highest net ranking in the SEC. And typically, let me just put it to you like this. Again, speaking only for myself, but if you were a 5th-year coach and you've got a program running, you've been to the NCAA tournament 3 times, and now you slide back and you go to the NIT, I don't think that's really much to crow about. I don't think it's a sign of it's kind of neither here nor there. In this case, I do think that maybe the NIT is probably worth it. It's a sign of progress. Anyway, long story short, what would the Tigers have to do to make it into the NIT?
Well, I think at 17 and 14, that's normally good enough to get you in NIT. So if they were to lose Thursday, they finished 17 and 15. That you used to have a winning record to get to the NIT. Well, that changed this year. If you finish, let's say the NCAA takes 7 teams to the NCAA.
7 SEC teams.
7 SEC teams, I'm sorry. So let's say they take 7. Well, they would go to the net and take the next 2 teams that finish in the net automatically to the NIT, guaranteed of a home game.
Right.
If LSU finishes 10th and they 17 and 15 or 18 and 15 or 16, whatever it would be, 18 and 15, there's a pretty good chance LSU would still get a wild card to the NIT. They would be an unseeded team. They're going to seed teams 1 through 4, and then they're going to have 4 unseeded down. They're going to seed them down after they get teams in. That's the way I believe it's going to happen. But I believe they're strong enough to get an unseeded spot in the NIT if they were a 3rd team behind the 7 or 8 that get in the NCAA. And as of yesterday, LSU was like 2 spots from being the number 9 team in the SEC.
Right.
Ole Miss has come down dramatically. Right. And so I think they have a good shot at getting to the NIT, even if barring, even a loss to Mississippi State on Thursday.
Rab, just to sort of close up, it's a sign of progress, don't you think? I'm leading the witness a little bit, but it's a sign of progress, don't you think?
Yes, Counselor, it is. No, it is. It's kind of, like I said, baby steps, and sometimes kind of haltingly so for LSU. But you look at this team, LSU. It's been weeks, but I was watching the SEC Network one time, and one of the analysts was saying, "Look, they've got some depth, they've got some length, they've got some. This is when Cook was on the team, but as Sheldon said, they've dealt with not having him now better than they dealt with not having him early in the season. It seemed like not getting to 9-9." without him,
Right.
and they've done very well without him. They've kind of thrived. Trey Hannibal particularly playing really well at the guard spot. So yeah, I think it's it's all part of the whole Matt McMahon thing, and there's always going to be comparisons to Will Wade, and Will Wade's doing great at McNeese, obviously. He's not a real flashy, he's not a real, megawatt personality or something like that. He's just this guy, very, very straight laced, very buttoned down, and he doesn't coach with a whole lot of emotion, either. It seems
He's shown a lot more this year.
more this year, yeah.
They've won some games.
Yeah,
They've been in games.
yeah, but I think I think it's just kind of like maybe under the radar a little bit, but it's like I think you're going to look up eventually and say, year 3 or year 4, and people are going to go, oh man, LSU's pretty good now in basketball. So
Right.
I think people just have to be patient because, like I said, they were dealt with such a tough hand. This was always going to take some time, and I think the fact that they're here, you could say they're on schedule, or obviously the goal is LSU should be in the postseason every year. In my opinion, that should be the goal.
Right.
NCAA tournament, NIT, whatever. Dale Brown went to 15 straight postseason tournaments, and he's the only coach who's been able to maintain that level of consistency.
I think
over
they
the
should
long
be.
term.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
They
off.
should be a postseason
I think they
team.
should. Well, postseason. I think they should be NCAA every year.
Sure,
Yeah, I mean, you
know,
got too many resources. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and maybe a new arena, look is coming down the road, and that could be attractive to more players. So LSU, I think Tennessee won to tie LSU for the second most SEC titles in SEC history behind Kentucky regular
Right.
season championships, but they've never been to the Final Four.
Right.
Alabama's never been to the Final Four. LSU's been to 4 and has some great. There's tradition there at LSU. It's been up and down. It's either in the Final Four or last in the SEC a lot of times, but there is a tradition there at LSU, and it's something that can be built upon. And people have to give Matt McMahon a chance, and I think I think we're seeing a positive direction and reasons for optimism with LSU basketball.
I will say this: they have 2 really good players coming in next year, freshmen. They have Corey Chest, who was a top player in Louisiana last year. They're redshirting him, and Matt McMahon says he's doing very well in all his workouts in practice. He's looking very good. 6'8", I think he's 6'8", 230, something like that. 6'8", 225. They have a kid named Robert Miller. I think he's 6'10" or 6'11". He's coming in from Houston, and they have a true point guard by the name of Curtis Givens, coming from Memphis. Got him away from Memphis. So, and then if they don't get anybody else signing, they'll probably sign one more high school player in April. It's what I'm.
But he's going to go back in the portal too.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's got to go find 3, 4, 5 quality players like he did this year that have played in major conferences. Last year, I've written about this. He explained to me they took the top 10 conferences in the net rankings and targeted those conferences and went and found players like Will Baker. Nobody here, I could tell you, nobody here probably had ever heard of Will Baker. And the guy shot almost 55% at Nevada for 3 years. He's not a big rebounder, obviously, for a 7-footer. He doesn't get a lot of rebounds. But, I mean, the guy has
what a
the
great
touch.
addition he was.
Yeah,
it was a
he
great
hits
piece.
the 3. He gets inside. He'll take contact. Jordan Wright was a guy probably, he played at Vanderbilt. They're no good. So people here knew about Jordan, but he wasn't a flashy guy at Vanderbilt. He wasn't the top guy at Vanderbilt. They brought in, I'm trying to think of who else was the other big one. But those kind of guys, they went and found because they had time and because guys like that were still sitting there, or not still sitting there, were available when the season ended, and they did their homework, and they're going to do that again this year.
Right. That's right. LSU, the number 8 seed in the men's tournament, they will face Mississippi State, the number 9 seed, at noon Thursday up in Nashville. Sheldon will be there for that, and we'll see what happens with the Tigers for the postseason. We will see what happens. We are obviously, as we're coming to you midday Monday, we will see what happens with the continued fallout from the Thrilla in Greenvilla, and we will obviously be waiting. We'll wait a week and see what happens with the LSU women, what sort of seed they will get on Selection Sunday and where they'll be headed. And, of course, all eyes will be on wherever Kim Mulkey and the women head to in the postseason. Yes, Rab.
Two things, since we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Two things. Obviously, LSU Gymnastics has their home finale Friday against North Carolina. Then next week's the SEC Championships in New Orleans. They're coming off a great performance at the River Center, a road score. And Haley Bryant had 2 10s, and it might be your last chance to see her in person. She might come back next year, but we'll see. And softball swept the series at Kentucky. They're 22-0. They played number 1 Texas Tuesday at 11 a.m. For some reason. Do you know why? I don't know why.
I honestly don't.
I don't know why. But it's at 11 a.m. at Tiger Park. It's at least 1 versus 3 in the country. Maybe LSU move up to number 2 after sweeping Kentucky. So last undefeated team in the country against the number 1 team in the country. And they're getting to be a story. I mean, softball. You know, they're getting to be a story. So worth mentioning on the podcast.
No, it's listen. There's plenty to keep. Listen, we've gone this far and we haven't talked about spring practice at all. LSU football's spring practice is underway. So there is plenty to stay up in touch with. And what better way to do that than to sign up for the LSU newsletter? To do that, you obviously go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter and sign up for that to get all of the headlines sent to your inbox. If you haven't subscribed already to The Advocate, obviously please do. It's the best way to find all our writers' great work. So please subscribe. You go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. We are here every Monday and Thursday on the LSU Sports Insider on all our social channels, specifically the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. As I said, we're here live, but if you don't catch us live, you can catch us on that YouTube channel after the fact, so please subscribe there. And again, as always, we are brought to you by Champion Wealth Strategies. Please go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. It's been quite a weekend, hasn't it? There's always when is something interesting going to happen here around this state?
So boring covering LSU. Yeah.
And then something like this flies to the forefront, and magically we've got. Look at this! We've got a topic to discuss here on the podcast. So stay with us if you would. We appreciate you all tuning in. For Scott Rabalais, for Sheldon Mickles, for Amelia Cotton behind the glass, my name is Perryn Keys. This has been the LSU Sports Insider.